Hi, it's Pete here from See Your Toes Again. This is podcast number 20, and today I have a guest by the name of Chrstine from Idaho, and she is going to talk to us about her life over the past couple of decades, which has been a bit of a roller coaster. At one stage she was 300 pounds, which is about 136 kilograms, or roughly a little bit less than 2 of me. She had a gastric band installed surgically as a method of trying to reduce her weight. She contracted lupus, which is an autoimmune disease, and that was with her for the last a bit over a decade. She has been addicted to sugar for most of her life, and she talks candidly about how she came to terms with that. And how she has fought back, and to the extent now that she has hopefully got lupus under control and is potentially putting it into remission. If you suffer from lupus or anything similar, any of the autoimmune diseases, then listen in, please, and I hope you get something out of this. I hope the message is that you don't have to roll over and just take it. There are things you can do without taking meds, or possibly as well as taking meds, that will hopefully change the direction of your lupus or autoimmune disease for the better. So I hope you enjoy the following podcast. Thank you. So, hi Chrstine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I've met you on X, and I see your posts and so on, and I take it that you have made a bit of a comeback from ill health. Would that be correct? Or is it a weight issue or health or mental? Where are you coming from?
A little of both, or all of the above. I don't know. I think my story starts like the traditional American. We have an industry here for food, where food is for comfort, and we have access to very inexpensive food that's really bad for us. And growing up, a lot of bad advice. My generation and my parents' generation, so that would be boomers and Gen X, basically. When I was a teenager, and young teen girls, their hormones are all over the place, and so weight can be an issue. I was a normal weight, but I was heavier than I wanted to be, like a lot of girls were back then. And we were being told to eat low-fat, high-carb diet, and very quickly I went from being a little bit overweight to being more than a little bit overweight. And so in my early 20s, I began alternating between starving myself to lose weight and then kind of going back to eating whatever I wanted to without paying attention. So that's where my story starts. I have tried a number of things in my life, several diets, and one of the worst things I ever did for myself was eat vegetarian while I was pregnant with my first son. That's when things really went wrong. I put on 70 pounds, became depressed, and was quickly pregnant with my second son. It just kind of spiraled from there. By the time I got to my third son, because I had 3 boys, I was older. I was 34, and I was close to 300 pounds. And I was scared out of my mind. I went into the doctor and I said, I don't even know what to do anymore. Like, I diet, nothing happens. I do what I'm told to, nothing happens. And it was my first introduction to the concept of protein only, or carb loading, protein loading, whatever you, carnivore, I think is the other one. Yeah. And he just looked at me and he said, no carbs, no fruit, no breads, no nothing. Just, he said, if you're putting food in your mouth, I want it to be protein or vegetables. That's it. And I did it. I said, okay. And so that particular pregnancy, I only put on, I think, 10 pounds. So thankfully, I didn't come out of it even larger. But I really kind of had, things were against me at that point. Um, Diets were not working. It was really hard. Um, Not too long after that period, my husband at the time and I were really having a lot of trouble. We didn't agree on a lot of things. We hadn't pretty much our whole life. We got married too young, kind of, similar story. We went in and out of counseling, and I ultimately, 2007, I think it was, asked for a divorce. Said, I'm miserable, and we fight all the time. The kids are, we're seeing the effects of it. Our kids were really out of control. There was a lot of things, and um, there were a lot of things that led up to the divorce. It wasn't small stuff. It was some big problems we had, and I just decided I didn't want to live that way the rest of my life. So at that point in my life, walking away from that former life, and looking back at my history, that was kind of where I said to myself, something's got to change. And, I'm going to kill myself at this point, and not in the I want to scenario, but being this heavy. So I went and had weight loss surgery. Now, the one that I had is, um, it's called the sleeve. You maintain your stomach, it's just a lot smaller. I did a lot of research into it. I'm a really analytical person, so anything I'm going to do, I'm going to over research it. I'm going to over understand it. And when I understood what happened internally to the body, either with a bypass or the band, intuitively in my head, in both instances, I thought that's a permanent change that's potentially going to end up bad. And so I went with the sleeve, and I lost a lot of weight. I actually, I was about 60 pounds lighter than I am right now. Got to the point where people were making comments, "You're too skinny. We're worried about you. You don't look good." And I didn't feel good. Um, and so what we discovered at that point was something in that process, the surgery, the weight loss, the rapid weight loss, whatever, activated lupus. And so it's called SLE, it's systemic lupus, and I can't pronounce the E.
Yeah.
Call it SLE. It basically means that your lupus can impact any part of your body. And what was going on with me, and a lot of people, I didn't talk about it, but what was going on with me was about 6 months after the surgery, I began having something akin to a syndrome called dumping syndrome. If you eat a lot of sugar after you have weight loss surgery, your body can't process it, and it will flush everything out of your system. It's a really uncomfortable experience. But it was happening to me with almost anything I was putting in my mouth. So I could get up and have a couple of eggs, and I was sick immediately. Um, I ran some tests just for fun. Just when I was at home, if I drank enough water, it would cause it. I was just,
Oh, wow.
I was just trying to figure out what's going on. So I started going, and then at that point, I stopped eating because I had to go to work. Right, I had
Mm.
to leave my house. So, I didn't want to be at work sick all the time, so I stopped eating. And a lot of people don't understand that if you have a weight problem, if you're prone to being overweight, people assume you can't stop eating. It's not the case. A lot of us can, and um, there's a lot of instances still to this day where I have concerns about a circumstance I'm going to be in that I don't have a lot of control over. Um, an example might be, stuck on a plane and you can't get up and move around. I won't eat. I won't eat before I go on that because don't want to be uncomfortable, and I don't want to suddenly be sick and in a position where, I'm faced with that. So yeah, I can go without eating, and I was, and I started going into doctors and asking questions. I said, something's not right, and I don't know what it is. And They set me up with multiple specialists, and this went over a process of a year. Doctors argued with each other. It was a lot of fun. I had bariatric surgeon talking to a gastric doctor saying, it's not me, I didn't do it, um, and I'm just sitting over here going, somebody come up with an answer, that'd be all right. um, and it was ultimately the gastric doctor. I even saw a neurologist, believe it or not. I've seen everybody, and went into the gastric doctor for like the third time. And he had dug in and pulled up all my blood work, and he said, something's not right in your blood work. And I said, well, nobody's ever mentioned it to me. And he goes, I don't care. Something's not right. So he ran something called an ANA panel, and that's for autoimmune disorders. And they're all basically on a spectrum. They're all the same kind of thing. It's your body, your immune system has gone awry. It can be high, it can be low, it can be misdirected. Lupus is typically misdirected. And they came back, and even my regular doctor, she looked at me, she says, you don't look like a lupus person. She said, I never would have guessed it. And she said, but every single lupus marker was positive. She says, not only do we know for sure you have it, you've got it pretty serious, and nobody knew. And I thought, oh my word, what do I do? So I went on medication. That's what they do, right? You get sick, they hand you pills.
That's right. That's certainly what doctors.
Uh-huh.
The trouble is, I guess, if doctors said, "Oh, you can do this, that, and the next thing," and something goes wrong, then you're going to go back and say, "Why didn't you just put me on the meds?" So
Uh-huh.
it makes sense that a doctor would aim for meds first.
Uh-huh.
Can you explain to? I'm sorry, I know I'm
No,
interrupting here,
it's
but
fine.
can you explain briefly what lupus is? Because I'm sure I'm not absolutely sure about it, and I'm sure a whole bunch of listeners probably wouldn't know exactly what it was either.
Oh, okay. You have different components in your immune system. Um, Red blood cells, white blood cells, they all kind of do different things. And your immune system is there to protect you. You come into contact with a common cold, and your immune system goes to work trying to minimize it, trying to stop it from getting in. And then if you do get infected with the cold, it works to get you better. Um, in people with lupus, typically our immune system is very high. And I didn't know it at the time, but I have kids, and I used to get sick all the time. They come home from school, I caught whatever
Yeah,
was going around.
exactly. Kids are great like that. They're
They
they're
are.
very giving.
They share. Very good at
Yeah.
sharing. And then uh, a couple of years before this, I stopped getting sick. And I wasn't getting the flu, I wasn't getting colds, I wasn't really getting anything. And I just thought, cool, all right. But what was going on was my immune system was just ramping up, and it was really active. It'll get bored, doesn't have anything to do. It starts looking for something to do.
Right.
People,
Okay.
yeah. Um, we're all different. I think the lupus that most people hear about has to do with either your kidneys or your liver. Those are the most serious forms of lupus. When your immune system is attacking your kidneys or your liver, you're in serious straight. You're looking to die,
Yeah.
and you're the ones that they really have to get aggressive with treatment on.
Okay.
Mine, they determined, and they can't hook something up to you and see what it is, but by looking at my blood work, it's determined that it was attacking my bone marrow. My platelets were really low. A lot of my readings on my blood work just showed that I wasn't churning out a lot of blood. And then they also said that they were pretty sure that when I had surgery on my stomach, something behind your stomach, I forget what it's called, the vagus nerve, is a key part in the human body. And if people don't know this, if a surgeon's in there and they touch it, they can paralyze your stomach on accident. The vagus nerve is
Okay.
very, very sensitive, and that actually did happen to my mother. She has partial stomach paralysis. Um, and so if something goes awry with that vagus nerve, it can really set off a host of problems. So the suspicion is that something during the surgery uh, created an anomaly around my stomach. They don't really know inside, outside what, but that my uh, immune system targets it, takes out, goes after it. So, so digestive wise, eating has not been a lot of fun for me. I just don't even like doing
Okay.
it anymore. Um, so all of this, everybody's different. Like I said, sometimes I get eye infections. Those ones are weird. I wake up in the middle of the night with a lot of pain, and all of a sudden my eye's swollen and just out of nowhere. I get ear infections chronically. I have to. I actually, I don't take antibiotics. I won't do it anymore. So I use peroxide, and when I can feel it starting, I'll rinse it with peroxide. And if I do that for a couple of days, it usually holds it off and it goes away. Um, and another example, I usually joke with people about this one. I'll say, I can be around people with COVID and not get it, but if I scratch my finger, it darn near falls off.
Mm.
It's like my immune system's doing something else, and it goes, "Oh, that scratch isn't a big deal. We're going to just ignore it."
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's everybody's got something different with lupus, and a few things are the same. They talk about something called the butterfly rash right here, the redness. Um, Usually, you can. Mine's pretty visible in the morning after I take a shower. I don't have any makeup and stuff on, no lotion on. It'll show up. Um, and then something else. But so the last thing that's common in people is something called Raynaud's. It starts with an R. It's Reynauds.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it. Yeah.
It's a circulatory problem. Your fingers and your extremities, they have a reaction to cold, and your fingers will, the blood will drain out of your fingers and they turn purple. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Actually, you're right. I've got a colleague who mentioned that just a week ago. He said that his fingers and his toes are permanently freezing,
yeah, yeah,
and he mentioned Raynaud's. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I wear gloves a lot, so they told me just to try to keep your fingers warm.
Mm.
um, so so again, lupus is kind of not a one thing, but it is all about the immune system. And I was taking the medicine. It just so happens that the medicine was one of the hot button medicines right now called hydroxychloroquine. It's also known as Plaquenil. And and I was on it for a really long time. Um, and they just would look at my blood work and say, okay, you pass. But I never went into remission. They talk about people in lupus going into remission and things like that. And it just never happened for me. And lupus isn't fun because it impacts your memory. It impacts, you get fatigue from it. Um, and it's not a very fair situation because it really just kind of robs you of being able to live a normal life. And nothing ever got better. And really, there was all these little learning points that at the time I didn't know were learning points. They just seemed to me like random, people go through life and they're like, why does everything bad happen to me? And that's
Yeah.
kind of how I felt at the time. And apologize. I have a really big dog and he's howling. Um,
As long as it's not your stomach or anything.
No. But when COVID first hit, I was like everybody else. Um, Nobody knew what it was. And of course, I have immune issues. So I went to my boss and I said, hey, I have some concerns. I don't know what any of this is. Can I work from home? He said, sure. And so I took my stuff and hooked up at home and was working from home. And that was in March when really kind of everything rolled out, right? March hit and everybody was like, we're going to do lockdowns. Everybody stay home, wear your masks, closing everything down. And I thought, okay, I'll go with this. Let's see what happens. Now, like I said, I'm an analytical person. My brain goes 24/7, and it just is. It's comparing information constantly. It's what I do for a job. And by the middle of April, it wasn't making sense to me anymore. I thought, okay, we get flus. We get some bad flus. We've had the bird flu, the pig flu, everything. People have died from it. It's awful. I hate hearing when that happens. But they're treating this like some other thing. And I have my suspicions now. This doesn't sound right to me. And so at that point, I started paying attention. And that was actually the time period, ironically, where I told my husband, we had talked about moving to Idaho. So I was in California at that time. We talked about moving to Idaho. We'd been talking about it for years. And I said, let's go. Everybody's working from home now. Let's do it. And so we did. So we packed up. We ended up moving up to Idaho in June of that year. It was 2020, right? Yeah, 2020. And but in May was when hydroxychloroquine the name got put out there. Nobody knew what it was unless you had an autoimmune disorder or unless you had a transplant, because it is an immune suppressor. And it came out in May that, hey, this might help it. And when I first heard that, my first reaction was, oh, it's going to be fun getting my meds now. Right?
Yeah.
So I called the pharmacy that day and I said, I need to be put on a list because I'm not using it for COVID. I'm using it for lupus. And, I'm not supposed to go off of it. So they put me on a list that basically said when the product comes in, this person gets it first. And then shortly after, the news went out and said how dangerous hydroxychloroquine was, that it was causing heart attacks, and I think they listed a couple other things, and I thought, no, it's not. What? So this was another stepping stone for me to something's not right. This isn't adding up. What do you mean it's dangerous? And I joke. I actually lost a friend over this. A friend of mine. He and I were having a whole conversation, and I said it's not dangerous. I'm telling you, it's not. And he said, well, it's dangerous for people who don't need it for what you're using it for. And I said, it is safer than Tylenol, and that you can bank on. I said, when I was given this medication, I was told that by more than one doctor. They said, this is the safest thing we could put you on. The next step is steroids. And I said, I'm not doing steroids. I said, they literally stated to me, it's safer than Tylenol. This is what we would prefer you be on. And he didn't want to have anything to do with it. So he wrote me off. Said, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And so then we go down that road. And then I'll skip all the way through COVID because that's a whole other story. But
yeah,
I was up here in Idaho helping people learn how to get ivermectin, so you can see where I land on the scope of conspiracy theories. And so I know it was around Christmas. You get through the holidays, you get done, and you just eat like crap for 2 months.
Yeah, Christmas is great like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what a crazy, thing that we've developed. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah, that's funny. You're right, because we're supposed to be celebrating Christmas for all of the Christian reasons, but these days we celebrate Christmas. It just means an excuse to eat all sorts of crap for an extended period of time.
yeah, yeah. It starts in October and then it goes all the way through December.
Oh man, yeah, exactly. It's like Easter these days. It's
Hmm.
like February and Easter eggs pop up in the supermarkets.
Yeah.
Mm,
So
mm,
by December of 2021, that's right. By December of 2021, I had decided I was going off my medication for two reasons. So one reason is I have an eye specialist I see. My left eye has a bad retina, and so they've been monitoring the retina for years, and they've been telling me, we hate that you're on that medicine because it's only one problem is if you get an overabundance in your body, it stores it behind your eye.
oh,
Nobody knows why, but it will make these little deposits behind your retina. And they said because of the way your retina is shaped, we can't see it. So if it starts up, we aren't going to see it till it gets to the other eye.
yeah.
And they said, we don't want to see you lose sight in two eyes. So we hope you go off of it soon. And so I did. And I went off of it because I pulled up all my blood work over the last 10 years I'd been on this drug. And I said, nothing has changed. My blood work's not better. Nothing has changed. The only thing Plaquenil was doing was suppressing my lupus results. So I went off of it and I made an appointment in February of 2022. And I said, I want you to pull all my blood. I want you to check everything. Just put vitamins, everything. I need a base start. And I want my ANA run. And so they're like, well, okay, sure. So they pulled it. And I found this interesting. I told you nothing changed in my blood work, right?
Mm,
I
yeah.
get a phone call the day after they read the labs and they're in panic. They're like, did you know you have lupus? What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was taking that medication. Um, anyway, so they're like, yeah, your blood work's crazy. And I said, I know it is. I said, but I'm going off my meds. I'm doing something else. What I had done though, starting in January, I told myself, that's it. The first thing is sugar, because I had done all the research. Plus, it's just been out there lately. People have just been saying, look, if you have an immune problem, start with sugar, because that stuff's really bad for you. And so I told myself I'm going off sugar. And that was probably the biggest lie I've ever told myself in my life. But it, it took me the entire year. So I would make it like a month and then I'd break it. And then I'd be like, okay, we're not going to play the beat up game. We're just going to go, okay, you screwed up today. Tomorrow we're going to start over. And then I would make it 2 months and then 6 months. And then pretty soon one day, standing there and I said, I can't remember when I had sugar the last time. And then I knew I'd won because I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't craving it. And I just had completely forgot about the last time I had sugar. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. All right, I won that one, right? So then I just went and started looking into what else I should be changing. And of course, carbs was one. I'd already reduced them. And I was kind of like a lot of people in the world are now. I don't just eat bread now. I don't eat pasta, that kind of stuff. But I was still eating carbs. So I told myself, if it didn't grow to become a thing, like a potato or something along those lines, don't eat it. If somebody had to make it, somebody had to produce it, don't eat it. So that was my next step, is getting off processed foods. And so that one was a little easier because by then it was like, just don't buy it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I began to notice I felt better, and my mood was better. Um, like I, I wasn't in a fog all the time. I started to be able, my memory was better. It's still not great. Um, I do think there were definitely some possibly permanent things that happened with lupus in my brain, but it's far better than it was at the time. And so then I thought, there's something to this, right? There's definitely this idea that your diet can make you healthy or make you sick. There's something to this because I'm proving it just by trying things.
And incidentally, just to interrupt you there, that's something I bang on about all the time, and yet most people think that all I am doing is banging on about it, because how can something so simple as what you're shoving down your throat have an effect on your health?
Yeah.
Most people think, nah, that's just crap. There's got to be more to it than that. And
Yeah.
incidentally, when you said you broke the basically you broke the addiction to sugar.
Mhm.
That's a hell of a move, and most people who have eaten sugar all their lives don't understand that addiction
It's
until they
horrible.
try to stop it.
It's
Um,
it's a
it's a
horrible addiction.
it's a pretty hard pull, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm most impressed with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a hard battle for me. People don't know. Somebody asked me one time, "How did you get to be 300 pounds?" Because my highest weight was 318, and
For metric people out there, 300 pounds, I worked it out in a minute ago,
okay.
was 136 kilograms.
Mhm.
I don't know what that is in stone, but 136 kilos is just about two of me. So it is big. So
It's big.
I don't mean to point that out, sorry, but
No,
it gives people an indication of where you were.
and I'm not tall, so.
Yeah, yeah,
um, and but a lot of where it came from was that sugar addiction because I would eat normal meals. Okay, I wasn't the person who you would see in a restaurant whose plate was just heaping with food. I ate normal size meals.
yeah,
But at the end of the night, when the kids went to bed and I was just bored, I would sit there and I would just shovel sugar in my face,
mm,
large quantities of it. Um, and it was just an addiction. I couldn't break it. Um, it was awful having that problem. Um,
yeah. And I think that time of the night, and I know from the past with myself, I've never been huge, but I know I used to use the gym as an excuse. Like, I've done a workout. I'm allowed to eat all of these sugary. Like, I'd eat a tub of ice cream. I'd sit down with a tub of ice cream and think I'm going to eat a quarter of this, and then an hour later I've polished off the whole lot, and I'm licking the tub because I'm still wanting more.
mhm,
And if another tub was there, I would have started on that.
yeah,
And it's that time of the night, eh? It's like 7, 8, 9, even 10 p.m. It's just a great grazing time for all that sugary, processed shite that just is
yeah.
dying to go down your throat.
It's true. It's just terrible. Yeah, that's actually currently my new habit to break is eating after a certain time. Um, Part of the problem is I work a lot. I work in healthcare, ironically.
Yep.
I'm a finance person though, and people think, oh, the hospitals are overrun and they don't have enough staff. Well, finance doesn't either. We're skeleton crew, so we're all working a lot of hours. So a lot of times I work till 6 or 7 at night, and end up going out and eating dinner after that. Trying to break that habit right now. Um, I got my metabolic doctor said, okay, new habit to break.
Yeah, that's right.
um, yeah, and that's just going to take organizing my day better, and I'll get there. But my new thing is I'll set my sights on a goal, and people who have weight problems, they get caught in a weird cycle. And the cycle is they're really hard on themselves mentally, right? So they're constantly evaluating every time you stick the fork in your face, you're having a conversation in your head, and it's usually something like, I can't believe you're eating again. Or I can't believe you're eating that. And it causes you to lose sight of the goal because you're so wrapped up in an emotional response to what's going on in your body that you can't see past it and realize this is a moment in time, this isn't permanent. And so now if I have a goal to break, I don't tell myself, okay, you have to have this goal broken tomorrow. I don't do that anymore. This is my goal. I'm not losing sight of this goal. I'm going to keep making little changes till it's there. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you screwed up again. I don't do that to myself anymore because it absolutely does nothing outside of distracting you, stopping you from getting to what you want.
Have you found that the reduction of sugar on processed foods, let's face it, most processed foods are full of sugar anyway.
Yeah.
Have you found that has had a positive effect on those, let's call them the voices in your head, the negativity in your head?
I don't know, but quite possibly. Because I have to imagine, knowing what it felt like to have those cravings for sugar and junk, that had to play a part in it. There had to be something in that driving you to focus on it, right? So in the moment you want something bad and you're denying yourself, it's harder when that addiction's there because it keeps coming up, right? And to this day, like I don't know, we don't keep junk food in the house. And now I got 2 adult kids that live with me because it's expensive and they live with me right now. And they eat terrible. We have conversations all the time about it. They know all my health stuff. They know all the changes I've made. And I just hope at some point in their life, they look back and say, I'm going to do what mom said. But they know not to have any junk food where I can see it. Because even though I don't crave it anymore, if I keep walking past it and seeing it, that little voice will come up eventually. It's like an alcoholic.
No, I know that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've known a lot of alcoholics, and they've talked about how there are certain stores they can't go into because if they keep seeing that aisle, eventually they end up on it. And they don't know how they got there.
I've got 2 housemates who buy all sorts of crap. They don't care about what they eat. One of them especially really doesn't care what she eats. And I'm trying to get to like exactly what you said. Normally there'd be nothing sugary or bready, nothing with gluten in this entire house. But with these 2, there's pastries and scones and muffins and there's biscuits and there's chocolate and there's all sorts of, let's call them health bars. There's all sorts of crap just lying everywhere. And it can be difficult. I have to move all of these muffins and stuff out of my way to get to my the electrolytes I make up for my gym workout drink.
Yeah.
And it just gets monotonous to have all this crap because it's always saying, oh, this looks nice, Pete. Oh, Pete. Oh, why don't you try me? I'm much nicer than I look. And it's just, if it was so much easier when I was on my own and I didn't have all that. I never went down those aisles of the supermarket.
Yeah.
So I never bought the stuff. It just wasn't in my house. And that's how I got over my addiction for sugar and processed junk. And it's bloody hard.
It is hard. Yeah. In that circumstance, I always just try to tell myself, that's not my food. I can't eat it if I see it. But, a couple weeks ago, out of the blue, my husband, who is their stepdad, brought donuts home. Now, I'm not a donut person. I don't eat donuts. They don't tempt me. It's just one of those things where it's just not my thing, right? And so here's this dozen donuts sitting on the table. and the boys had a couple of them, but they, despite the fact that they eat a lot of junk, they can't power eat sugar like I used to. So I'm at least glad to see that.
Yeah.
So I think they each had two and left the rest of them there. And they were on the table for 2 days. That's all it took. And in the middle of the second day, I started having trouble. My head started saying things like, it's just one. And at that moment, I said, oh no, we're not doing this. And so I went and I gathered up the men in the house and I said, get them out. I said, I don't care if you throw them away, give them away, or eat them all right now. Just get them out of my sight.
Yep. Good on you.
Yeah. Because it is hard. And I you know, every once in a while, what my husband and I will do is we'll get super dark chocolate. It doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. And I usually buy the stuff where it's just cocoa, a little bit of sugar and salt. That's about it.
Yep.
And we'll have a couple squares of that, and it will satisfy kind of this thing that humans go through where it's like, I'd like to taste something sweet today.
Yeah.
It doesn't create the craving, but it will start the conversation in my head again. So I don't do it very often, maybe a couple times a year. Because now to me, I dread it now, right? So every once in a while I'll just be like, okay, I just want to try some chocolate and then I'll be over it. But then I know for a couple of days I have to, tell myself that was it, just the one. And I think I'm getting more and more to where I don't even want to do that.
This is just a quick intermission in the middle of this. I hope you're enjoying this podcast. While I'm here, can I suggest, if you like this podcast, I'll have other guest speakers on as well in the future. Why not subscribe? So at the end of the podcast, if you go on to my channel and just hit subscribe, see your toes again. Incidentally, also, if you're interested in the subject of keto diet and how it affects, obviously, mental health as well as physical, I have a book that I've written all about this. It's about 200 pages long. It's on Amazon. It costs a bit less than 10 British pounds. And it's called See Your Toes Again as well. So if you read that, you'll find that that'll give you the step-by-step process of how to do it. So thank you for listening so far, and I hope you keep enjoying it.
I had a birthday a couple of weeks back, and it was funny because for the first time in years, my parents did not say, can we get you a cake? Because, I've been doing this for a few years now, and they literally were having like sadness over not being able to get me a cake.
Yeah, they can't celebrate your birthday without a cake.
Mm-hmm. And so I felt that was a win. I was really excited about that. I was like, they didn't have me about a cake this time. This is great. Yeah. So people will begin to come around. They think you're weird at first, right? They sit there and they look at you. How could you eat that way? Aren't you starving? That can't be enough food for you. These are all things I hear all the time. But over time, I think they just get tired of saying it to you, and then it just kind of goes away. But the current conversation with my parents is, we'll go out to dinner about once a week. And it's always, well, we don't know where to go because the way you guys eat. And so my response is typically, pick anything. I can find something to eat anywhere. I can tell people, take the bun off, or whatever. There's always something that I can figure out to eat there. If I have to back down to a salad, I'll do a salad. And so, I try to tell her stuff like that because the imposition that my diet's a problem for somebody else, that's in their head. It's not my head.
Yeah, it is. That's right. What? So you mentioned before that you were in quite a lot of pain from eating anything. How is that now then?
It's much better. Um, I'm really in tune with my entire body now, by force, really, just by um, learning to see some signs. And it's become a fascinating thing for me because, my whole life I just thought you put food in and that's the way it is. And then your body just accepts it and you go from there. But I can start to eat something and I will get an immediate indicator that it's a problem.
Okay.
It can be too greasy. I can handle fats just fine. I don't have a problem with it. I don't know if it's a particular type of grease that I'm not aware that they're using because we don't do the seed oils anymore. Um,
Good.
so it could be I'm eating somewhere and it says it's cooked in one thing, but maybe there's something else in there. I don't know, but I will get an indicator in my stomach. I will get kind of almost a pain when I first eat that says, "Hey, don't keep eating that."
Hmm.
Um, and there's, we take a lot of supplements. Most of my supplements have to do with tempering my immune system and getting it
Sorry, temporary what? Sorry?
tempering my immune system.
All right, temporary.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
supporting it in the way that works best for it.
Yep.
And so recently, like I said, I see a metabolic doctor. I agreed to do this, and this can be another shoot off, but because my doctor kept saying your cholesterol's high,
Oh
and
God, I hate it when doctors
mhm,
say that, but carry on.
yeah, and the first doctor that said it to me, I looked at her and I said,
Sorry to interrupt. When was this? Was this when you were still on sugar, or since you've broken away from
since
sugar?
I broke away from it,
Okay, cool.
yeah. So probably I don't know 6 or 8 months ago, the doctor said
Okay.
that, and I said, don't even utter the word statin to me. I'm not doing it. And she goes, okay. So she goes, oh, hey, there's this red yeast rice or something like that. Have you heard of that one? It's a supplement. Yeah.
No, I haven't
Okay.
heard of that one.
Well, she forgot who I was. So I went home and I looked it up. It's a statin.
Ah,
It's a
really?
natural statin.
Right.
And does the same thing. Those statins that cause a lot of problems.
They do.
Um, and so I went back to do my blood work months later. Your cholesterol's still high. Can we talk about statins again? Don't. And don't ask me about the red yeast rice either, because I'm not taking that either.
And when they say your cholesterol's high, that's like saying the water is cold or your water is wet. It's like, oh, thanks. I thought it was wet because it's water.
Yeah,
Cholesterol is high means nothing. And the
yeah,
reason, of course, I asked you, as you're probably well aware, were you still on sugar when they said this? If you are on loads of sugar and your cholesterol, that's when cholesterol and sugar don't like each other and they cause trouble.
mhm,
But if you're on a low sugar diet and you've got high cholesterol, that's my LDL cholesterol is actually quite high. My HDL is great. My triglyceride to HDL ratio, which I've been told is the real one you should be looking at,
mhm,
again, is really good.
mhm,
Um, but the doctor looked at my blood test and said, oh, your LDL is pretty high. It's like, I really didn't care whatsoever because I don't eat sugar or processed foods at
yeah,
all. So um,
exactly.
that's the problem. The doctors, unfortunately, of course, again, they've got a bunch of markers they need to look at. They look at your cholesterol levels, they look at your LDL and your HDL, and they say, "Oh, that one's a bit high. We better do something about it."
hmm
And it's terrible. It's sacrilege to the body.
Yeah. Well, they tried for a while to get me to go into this metabolic doctor, and so I finally asked him, well, what's this doctor going to do? Because I said, in my mind, since you're wanting me to go there, this person's going to just keep pushing and pushing until I get statins. And they said, no, 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 they'll work with your diet. I said, okay, I'm going to go give it a try. So both my husband and I went to see this guy, really nice guy, and he puts my blood work up on the wall, and he goes, so why are you here? And I said, well, they told me to come see you because my cholesterol's high. And he turns around and he goes, and his dietitian's in the room, and he looks at her and he goes, do you see that? She goes, yeah. He goes, your cholesterol ratio is 0.9. I am not worried about you. And I said, oh, so then that was when he explained that whole, how they calculate it. And then he starts going through all the rest of the blood work. He says, for a 55-year-old woman, that's the best blood work I've seen yet.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so I said, well, that's why I'm here. And he goes, well, let's come up with a new reason for you to be here. And the dietitian said, do you want to lose weight? And I looked at her and I said, you know, my goal in life is to feel good and to be healthy. I'm not necessarily looking for a size in specific, because every time I get into that mode, I cause trouble. I said, I start starving myself. I start doing really stupid things. And I said, so if you give me a diet thing to try and I happen to lose weight, okay, we're good. But do I want to come in here and bang my head on the wall until I get to a certain size? Not interested. And so anyway, and just so people know, this dietitian, she's about 5'2", weighs about, okay, so I have to do pounds because I don't know the other stuff. She weighs about 100 pounds.
Oh, wow. She's a stick then, isn't she?
She's a little tiny thing, probably 25 years old. Super sweetheart. But it's just funny, you know, when you're sitting there and you're like, I remember when I used to be young like you.
Yeah.
And you
when
think,
I was 10, I was your size.
Right. Yeah. And I'm thinking, you probably think that I'm going to do this diet and just come back in here and lose like 20 pounds. But I got news for you. My body doesn't work that way anymore. So what they did with me was the very few carbs that I had. And I think what we ended up taking away was, believe it or not, nuts, fruit.
Yep.
And then there was a homemade sprouted wheat bread that I was making myself. And it only had a certain number of stuff in it. But it was only one piece for fiber. And they said, nope, getting rid of that. I said, okay. And milk. Okay. So they took all that away from me.
Yeah, milk is a tricky one because people think it's healthy, but it's full of lactose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is a sugar.
And hormones. That was the other thing they said. For women, there's some hormones in the milk that causes trouble. I said, okay, all right, fine, I'll do it, right? And so I've been doing that now for, I want to say it was the middle of March that I started that. And I've finally lost 6 pounds. That
was March as in a month ago.
Yeah, a month ago. So, about a month ago. I finally lost about 6 pounds. So it's not like falling off of me or anything like that. But it's not hard to do. So I said, okay, fine. I'll stick with this.
So you've said what they've told you not to eat. What do you eat then?
Meat, fat, and vegetables that grow above the ground.
Good. And when you say fat, what fat are you talking about?
Butter, lard, avocado oil, coconut oil. And then we do have olive oil. I don't use that one as much.
You got to watch out for olive oil. I use lots of olive oil, but there has been a lot of scaremongering, and I can understand that people who want to make money offshore, you know, fill up a bucket of vegetable oil and slap an pure virgin olive oil sticker on it, and it's worth 3 times as much. That is a tricky one, that one, because I would avoid vegetable oil like the plague.
Right.
As you've mentioned already.
Yeah, we don't even have it in the house anymore. So
no, I remember a container several years ago. I read about vegetable oil. We had a container in the kitchen. I took it outside and poured it into a particular spot in the garden where I didn't want anything to grow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to throw it down the drain, because the last thing the drain needs is a litre of oil down there.
No.
Mm.
That's good to know, though, because there's probably some in the recesses of my cabinet somewhere, and I've got a whole area of weeds that I'm trying to kill. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
try to
you just pour it
dig
over
around.
there. There's not many weeds can cope with having their roots covered in oil.
That's funny.
It's not great for a plant.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. So as far as, have they told you sort of, have you got down the route of ratios or anything between fats and proteins or anything like that? Or are
They
they just saying
haven't.
eat
They
until you're
haven't
full?
really gotten there yet. I, I I was in there um, 2 weeks ago just for a weigh-in and just to give me some more information on the diet process. And we were talking, and I told her, I said, I'm having kind of a bad stomach today, so I didn't eat today. She goes, you haven't had anything to eat? And I said, no. She goes, oh, great. So in comes this nurse, and they were pricking my fingers so they could check my ketones. She
Yep.
goes, oh, yeah, you're in ketosis. And I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are, you are what we call ketogenic, of course, because you've got, for example, the carnivore community, which I know you'll see lots of posts on X, on Twitter about carnivores. But of course, they're not into their vegetables. They don't like their green leafy vegetables. So
Yeah.
whereas I just posted a podcast tonight, ironically, which was with a carnivore that I interviewed a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, I like my leafy green vegetables, and I like my asparagus, and
Yeah.
I get the stalky young broccoli, so it's not a big chunky flowered broccoli. It's these stalks. I like them, and I like olives, and I like olive oil, and I like
Mm-hmm.
cherry tomatoes. I don't like big tomatoes, but I do like the little cherry tomatoes.
Yeah.
And jalapenos and all this sort of palaver, and I mix them all up into a salad. And I
Yeah.
saute the asparagus and the broccoli with mushrooms and a bit of garlic and
Nice.
wild mushrooms if I can find them. The oyster mushrooms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's bloody delicious.
It is.
And I have that with my meat.
Yeah, well, I started growing vegetables a couple of years ago. And I in fact, we just set up a new box out back. And so looking forward to growing them again. It has been a big learning curve because coming from California, you can grow anything in California. Just put it in the
Yeah,
ground and walk away, and it
yeah,
grows.
yeah.
Up here in Idaho, we have a short growing season. Like right now, spring is here. Yesterday, last night got down to 28 degrees, so we can't plant yet. So you can't grow everything here. And so it's been a learning curve, and their soil is very different here. It's potatoes grow here because of the soil. But not everything likes the same soil that potatoes like. So
Mm.
so everything in my yard is raised ground, and I can't grow potatoes to save my life in the raised ground bed. So that's the funny part. So
Yeah,
my mom told me, grow me some potatoes, and I said, well, I'm going to have to like find a side of my yard, and I have a lot of rock in my yard, pull it back and plant them in the ground. It's not working in the raised beds. But I love vegetables too, and I love doing what you do. And peppers, I was growing peppers last year. That was so much fun.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, we had several different types, and we would just put them in a big bowl, and anybody in the house that was cooking would just come in and grab one and cut it up and throw it in whatever they were cooking. I love it.
I had a Scotch bonnet as a pot plant a few years ago, and man, it produced.
Wow.
That takes your skin off. It is one of the hotter of the peppers
Mm.
of the chilies. But yeah, I was amazed with how it grew. Actually, it was a stalky, horrible thing, and I mixed up some hydroponic food and gave it food every day, and it became a triffid.
That's
Anyway,
great.
I'm deviating a bit there. So how are you feeling now that you've on this diet? And I know you've only been on there for a month, so it's a little bit premature. But Have you noticed any different feelings as far as how you feel physically?
Um, I think it's kind of normal. I'm having some of the tiredness, and this isn't a fatigue thing. It's not like a brain fatigue thing like I was having with lupus. It's an energy thing, and I think it's just my body is learning to adapt. What they told me was they don't want me exercising a lot right now, because it will sort of cause my system to not know what to do. They said right now your body's learning how to use its own resources, and I guess the belief is, even though I did not score as being insulin resistant, this particular doctor used to be a bariatric surgeon, and he said that they are seeing in the bariatric uh, patient community that they can be insulin resistant, but it will not flag in the blood work. And
Mm.
he said all of your symptoms indicate you are, and then your blood work says you're not. So they're hoping to kind of right that ship and get the insulin response back in line. So that right now they really want to teach my body to use its resources again, instead of doing what it was, which was storing things.
Yeah.
Um, and so that tiredness, I think, is normal. They actually told me that to expect it, it was a possibility. And at first I didn't. First I just felt really good. And then I started kind of getting the tiredness, but it's, it's not stopping me. I don't feel bad. I just, at the end of the night, a little earlier than normal, I'm sort of like, okay, let's go to bed. I'm ready.
Mm.
um,
That could even be your body recovering, because let's face it, you recover while you're asleep. And if your body's saying, hey, it's time, I want to go to sleep,
mhm. Yeah,
give me a break,
yeah.
because your body probably, after that many years of the issues you've had, your body's probably got a little bit of recovering to do.
I agree with you. I think so too. And actually, I didn't get to say this piece, but in January this year, they ran my ANA panel again. And uh, I was eagerly awaiting the results because I thought I want to see some of those lupus markers go away. And so came in a couple days later, and all of them were gone.
Wow.
And there were two markers left. And I don't remember all the names because it's basically a list, and they indicate different types of autoimmune problems. And I think it's 7 of them are for lupus, and then you've got a whole host of other things, Sjogren's and some other types of things. Um, and there was one on there that was still positive, and I went to look it up because I didn't really know what that one was, and it actually said that's the Raynaud's, and it could have been. I think Sjogren's was that one anyway, but that's a skin disorder, and I don't have any symptoms of it.
Mm.
So anyway, this particular doctor was a new doctor, and I had already told her I was really excited to see the blood work. That I've had lupus for 11 years, 11 years, and I'm
That's a
using.
lot of time to have something that's that chronically annoying
Absolutely,
and painful.
absolutely.
Mm.
And I said I'm excited because I've changed my diet significantly, and I'm really hoping to see some improvements. And I get a phone call, and it wasn't from her; it was from a nurse going, "Well, we want you to come back in because now it looks like you've got Sjogren's." And I said, "Oh, come on." I said, "That's silly. I mean, I said, look at my ANA last year and look at it this year. You guys should be calling me up and patting me on the back. Like,
Yeah.
what the heck?" And I actually did get upset enough to call in. And so I called into the front desk and I said, I want this message to go to my original doctor. So this office, I picked this doctor years ago when we moved here because he's independent. He's not tied to the government system. And he only takes patients who are not on government payer insurance. And I picked him on purpose, because work in healthcare finance and I do government reimbursement, and I know what the regulations do. So he's a great guy, but he is in some other country right now, doing some work. And so I got shifted to this new doctor. So I want you to get this message to him because he knows what I've been doing. He knows what I'm up against. And he was actually really on my side about the whole thing. He thought it was great. And so what ended up happening was a message came in the patient portal that said to the something to the other doctor, and she responded to it, and it came, and I got a copy of it. And her response was, well, I don't know what was communicated to the patient, but I agree her blood work looks great. That is not what you said to me.
Mm.
That's not fair, it's hard. It makes it hard to want to go in and see doctors.
Yeah, that's right. And if they haven't seen the before and after, I guess, especially, but if they only see the after without seeing the before, then they're still looking at the negative things and they're thinking, oh, how can we, how, I know this sounds really cynical, but what can we sell them? What product can we get them on?
Yeah. Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, especially on a podcast.
I understand. And if you want to take that one out, that's fine. I agree with you. There is absolutely a component to this of pushing medication.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So that's been really good. That's been really interesting. And I think, people will hear your story. And I'm sure there's people out there that are thinking, okay, I haven't got it that bad, but here's a woman that has made some changes and is seeing some pretty bloody good results. Incidentally, the 100-pound nurse weighed 45 kilos, which basically, if she stood in a light breeze, would probably blow away with the other leaves. So, what are your longer-term goals at this stage? That's hard for me to easy for me to say. Incidentally, when you said you're more interested in your health, I think that's great because that's something I keep trying to bang on to, is that I'm not worried about people losing weight. I'm not worried about the weight that I'm at. It's about health. It's not about weight. And your health is going to be determined by lots of things. And in fact, weight, of course, you can go the other way and end up being unhealthy. And there's a lot of very unhealthy, skinny people out there too. There's
Absolutely.
probably quite a few metabolically unhealthy skinny people out there who think, oh, look at me, I'm skinny, I'm low weight, I'm fine.
Yeah, I think that's especially true for the people who can, quote, eat anything they want and never gain weight.
Yeah, that's right.
I would worry about them.
Yeah. So what are your long-term goals at this stage then? Just keep doing what you're doing?
I'm just going to keep setting more goals. Like I said, the doctor gave me a goal as far as not eating after a certain point. And that's something I'm paying attention to right now. It's not a critical goal to me as far as I feel like a pressing need that it's going to make a huge difference to me. But I understand why they want me to do it because it's trying to teach my body to use food the right way. So that's always out there. But the other little steps for me, when I get to the point where they're saying, okay, you need to start exercising, that's going to be a big hill for me to die on right there because I work too much. And I wish I could get away from what's going on in my industry right now and not be working so much, but a lot of hours sitting. So it was funny because one of my kids came in on my birthday and said, what do you need? Like, you never ask for anything from us. And what's something that would, and this was unique. My son said, what's something that would improve your life in some way, but it isn't super expensive? And I said, I don't know. And then I said, wait, I want a standing desk. I said, I've been wanting one of those for a long time. And a couple days later, it showed up on my doorstep.
Yeah, cool. Huh.
And so now, like yesterday, there was some webinar thing I had to watch. I get a lot of those where it's learning. We're
Yeah.
constantly having to learn about our industry.
Yeah.
And so I pulled up the stand-up desk and I went and got my little stair stepper and I just stood there and did the stair stepper while that was going on.
No, nice. Oh, well done.
Yeah. And so making adding different changes to my life that get me more active because I am not the go to the gym person. In
Mm.
my 20s, I was because I had friends that wanted to go with me, and it was like social hour, right? We'd go down there and we'd be down there for 2 hours and probably work out for 30 minutes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
If you ever do want to go to the gym, and I'm not making any money out of this, but just if you want anything to do with that side of thing, just DM me or something because
Okay.
you know I personally really like the gym. I like the weight training at the gym. I don't do much cardio because it does my head in, to be honest. But I do like the weight training and I like the feeling
Me
it
too.
gives me. And waking up your muscles and getting your muscles working, of course, is. And as we get older, it becomes more and more important to keep
Hmm.
them bones strong and them muscles strong and
That's very true.
yeah, and all of that
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
I
And
might. I might do it
yeah,
again. My
yeah,
my kids have a gym membership, and I told them your mother might tag along.
yeah. There's no gym because you work from home still, do you?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I would have, because the hospital would have a gym, wouldn't it?
A lot of them do. I would say most of them do. And
Mm.
actually, the office I used to work in had one. So, yeah,
Mm.
it's nice when that's an
That's
option.
at the end of COVID. I used to go to the gym. I used to because I work from home. I used to force myself at 5 o'clock to go to the gym because it was the only time I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't know anybody there. But it was a time when I could actually be out in public doing something in public as opposed to being a hermit at home. And you know how after we all came out of COVID, I felt like a bloody hermit.
Uh
I
huh.
didn't want to be around other people. And it forced me into just being in a room where there was 50 or 60 other people. And from there it built. And now I finish work at 5 and I make sure, and I've got colleagues who will ring me up at 5:30 and I don't know why they bother because they know I'm not going to answer my phone. Because sorry guys, from 5 till 6 is my time and I'm at the gym.
That's
And
you know what it's a great way to look at it. And I agree. I
mm,
get stuck in the house sometimes. There's a lot of times
yeah,
when I get off work and I go out and I tell my husband, "Come on, we're getting in the car. I can't be in the house anymore. Let's go do
yeah,
something."
yeah. I'm getting what's that, cabin
Cabin
sickness?
fever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one. Yeah.
Hmm.
How
Hey,
are
but
you? How are you feeling mentally? Is there anything to talk about on that?
actually, really good. And I had a lot of I had a good counselor because I know counseling can be kind of a scary adventure these days. You never know what they're going to be telling you or talking to you about. But right after my divorce, I had to reevaluate how I got to where I was in my life. The choices that I made were not choices that I would have expected myself to make, and yet there I was. Um, and so the type of counselor I saw, um, a good counselor will challenge your belief system and get you asking questions about yourself to yourself to determine if these thoughts, intrusive thoughts and things like that are real or are you making it up? And I call it stories, right? We tell stories
Yeah,
about ourselves, and a lot of times the stories aren't even true, and you get yourself all worked up, and
for
you're
sure.
you're a
That's
mental
right.
case.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it was a great counselor, got me into a really good place, and that was probably the biggest chunk of my mental process. But feeling better was another chunk of it. And so I think I'm in a really good place. I'm in a place where if something isn't right, I'm going to address it. I'm going to challenge it. I'm going to find out what I'm thinking or doing that might be contributing to it. But I think more than anything, people are not being given the message to believe that they have full control of themselves. They're being given a message that somebody else can prevent you from reaching a goal or accomplishing something. And that message is getting pretty strong right now in society. It's really disheartening to see it going on. It's really crushing a lot of our youth. And the reality is this: you have to challenge yourself. You have to say things to yourself and ask questions of yourself like, is that really true? Is it really true that I'm a failure because I ate a cookie? Is that really true? No, it's not. It's not true at all. You ate a cookie is what happened. It's just an activity occurred, and it's not maybe the activity you wanted to occur, but it has nothing to do with who you are.
No, it doesn't. What's the big word? It doesn't. That doesn't say who you are. It just says a moment of letting yourself go.
And you have to keep challenging those things because they'll get in your way. They'll stop you from accomplishing things. And when I was giving up sugar, I can't tell you how many times that I would catch myself. We were out somewhere and I ate something at somebody's house, and then later on that night I went, oh man, what did I do that for? And I'd have to stop and say to myself, okay, are you really going to let this become a big issue, or is it really as big of an issue as you think it is? Is it really going to be that hard the next couple of days to fight the cravings? It's not. You've been doing this for a while. Just get back into it. And I just want to, I just would like people to know that I'm like I'm the complete average housewife, mom. Like, there's nothing super unique about me at all. I just hit a point one day where nothing was making sense, and nothing was making me feel better. Nothing was making me any healthier. No medications, nothing. And I had to stop and say, why? And then I had to say, what is more important? Being able to just go on and live my life and not think about it, or feel better? Do I really want to feel better? Do I want to get healthier? Do I want to not have lupus anymore? Yeah, I definitely do. And so is it worth it to give things up and try things? Absolutely. And so, I'm not miraculous in any manner of the word. My mother thinks I'm weird. She adores me, but she, how can you eat that way? I just
Yes. What's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But just challenge those intrusive thoughts, because they really a lot of times are made up. They're absolutely they serve a purpose. When we have those stories in our head, they serve a purpose, and that purpose is typically, we think it's going to stop us from doing something, right? So we do something we don't like, or we make a choice we didn't want to make, and then we beat up on ourselves and we think, okay, good, gave myself a good talking to. I'm not going to do that again. You're going to do it again.
Yeah.
And what's going to determine the difference is, what's the conversation you're going to have next time? The conversation isn't going to be to beat yourself up and feel bad again. Like, don't add on to feeling bad. you know what I mean? Just say to yourself, oh, okay, that wasn't the choice I wanted to make. I'm going to make a different choice tomorrow.
Yeah.
Make it simple. Don't make it a big deal. And just keep moving forward. And then all of a sudden, one day you look back and you realize, I haven't even thought about that in months.
Yeah. there's a saying that says experience is recognizing a screw up when you make it a second time. So I'm quite experienced on that
Oh, me
respect.
too.
Yeah, but that's right. And you're quite right. You make a screw up, you brush yourself off, you make amends, and you don't have those festering feelings of how bad you are because of it.
Right.
Just get on with it.
No.
Yeah.
We treat ourselves worse than we treat other people usually.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
were talking to somebody else who made the same kind of mistake, you wouldn't be saying those words to them.
No, you'd be giving them words of hope and praise, hopefully.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Chrstine, it's been wonderful talking to you. We have
Yeah, that's my
spoken
pleasure.
for 1 hour and 20 minutes, believe it or
Okay.
not. I appreciate you coming and sharing your time with me, and I've really enjoyed the chat, and I think a lot of people will. I think a lot of people will be able to empathize and possibly see parts of themselves in there. If people do have lupus or autoimmune disorders, I'm sure their ears will be perking up. And but there are a lot of people who aren't in a wonderful place and think that it's just their life and that's it. And the only thing they can possibly do is go to the doctor and get some meds to make life easier for themselves. And it's listening to people like yourselves, and that's why I asked if you could come and chat, because it's listening to people like you gives people the chance to think, hang on, maybe there is an alternative to this. I don't need meds. I can do this on my own, for goodness sake.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I wish I had found this before the weight loss surgery. I don't know if I would have done it. Um, it was not. People think it's the easy way out. It is not, because after the surgery is done and you lose that initial weight, you still have the same problem in your life.
yeah, you haven't changed anything about yourself. You've just added a roadblock, but you've still got the same mental attitude. You've still got the same habits.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And you can still gain weight. You can have the world's smallest stomach and you can still gain weight.
Yeah,
And it's not always from overeating either. It's, there was something metabolically wrong with me from the start.
yeah,
And it was probably my diet.
yeah.
And
And that goes back to that whole calories in, calories out
mhm,
crap. Where that you keep hearing that it's
yeah,
just calories in and calories out. It's not. There's different calories. There's different foods. There's just different everything, and there's so many ways you can get large without just overeating.
that's true.
Mm.
That's true. When right before I had the surgery, they put me on a 1,300 calorie diet, and I did it. I stuck to it. I was very good about it. And after a couple months, I went in, and he said, "You haven't lost any weight. You sure you're following the diet?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Okay." He says, "You're definitely going to be one of the candidates for the surgery." He said, "So from here on out until your surgery date, you're on a liquid diet, and you can't
Ugh.
have, yeah, can't have more than 1,100 calories a day." Okay. I said, "Okay, I'm going to do this." And I did. Now, I lost weight. And when I went in for the surgery, I had finally lost some weight. And I remember him coming up to me and he said, "Could you eat this way the rest of your life?" I said, "Absolutely not. I'm starving constantly." He
Mm.
said, "That's why we're doing this." Now, that was back in 2010. You come all the way to now, and what we're learning and the information that's able to get out now, I'm going to put it that way, that, you know, metabolics is about so much. It's not just, oh, I'm a fat person and I gain weight. It's that your body doesn't like what you're putting in it and it's not processing it right. And so after having the weight loss surgery, I still managed to gain another 50 pounds back.
Mm. Yep.
and And so now I realize it's always been about what I ate and not the calories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how much we pound that into people just don't think it could possibly be that simple. I think that's the problem.
I agree. Look, when I started this out, decided that I was going to stop eating sugar and then stop drinking sodas and stop having processed foods. It was a gamble. I thought there's all these people saying that my lupus, could go into remission. Okay, fine, I'll try it. That's the way I've always been. All right, I'll try it. Because to me it's fun. If I could prove someone wrong, that's entertaining.
Yeah, for sure.
But unfortunately, I lost that gamble because it worked. And now I'm sold. Yeah, I won't go back.
Excellent. Good. Excellent. Thank you very much, Chrstine. I've really enjoyed having this chat with you, and I wish you all the best for the future, and I hope we stay in contact on X.